especially at this time in the career show. And Dr. Justison and I have a very professional relationship, but we have a little bit of a competitive relationship and a challenging relationship.
I have a crush on you, Missy.
I've asked him to dinner twice this week, and he has not said no, or not said yes. He said no twice. So.
Well, you're out of my league.
Just to tell you a little bit about our presentation, I think it's important that we look at our career and tech ed, especially ag ed programs, and see how we can use data to help drive success. And with that, let's go back to last March, Dr. Justison. I think I saw you in D.C. and you threw down a little challenge to everyone.
Well, start calling me Troy, okay?
Troy.
Yeah, or His Majesty, but...
Troy, if I call you Troy, will you go to dinner with me?
No, but I'll take you to meet Fonzie.
Okay.
Which we just got all taken care of.
There we go.
So.
Thank you.
Hi. I am concerned there are concerns that make me concerned about how well we can prove that CTE courses have a positive effect on the academic performance of students all across the country. As you well know, there have been some challenges to career and technical education funding at the federal level, and part of that reason why there have been challenges to continuing funding for Perkins dollars or CTE is because it's difficult to prove from a purely statistical, quantitative level that CTE programs like FFA, Ag Science, Ag Education, whether or not those programs improve the basic core competency level of students. So Missy and I have had a conversation or two over the past year about beginning to collect some data about how well students in ag education perform. Now, since Missy's the most important person in the state of Pennsylvania, we knew that we could start there because she could start with some data collection on some student performance, some basic outcomes that we can start measuring to prove that students in CTE do at least as well as all other students, and I have a hypothesis that they actually, students who persist and be concentrators, that's 3 or more courses in a specific area, that these students actually have better academic results than students who don't concentrate in a CTE field. And I actually believe that because of the history, the reinforcement, the infrastructure already there for ag ed, that students who focus in ag ed across the country will have better results in their high school measurement than other students do. So that was my challenge to Missy, and she took that challenge on, and I think this is our first opportunity to learn what she's come up with and to begin a foundation in some sound data collection across the country on how well these students do. So Missy, show me some good results.
Well, thank you, Troy. And he was at the ACTE policy seminar when he made his challenge and said, would somebody in the audience prove to me that career and tech education students drop out less frequently than general education students? And he wanted that information to be able to take to his boss, the secretary, to be able to take on to the president to make the case for career and tech education. So as I was sitting in that audience of several hundred and heard that challenge, I thought, you know what, I can do that. And so having done a dissertation and knowing that there are certain ways to frame and make sure that everything is valid and reliable, I thought, I can do this, but I'm going to do a little hip pocket research. And our state agriculture advisor is here, Chris Weller, and we have, of course, like many of your states, a listserv. I just tossed out on the listserv that simple question. Can you tell me how big your school is, how many students you have in ag education, how many total students have dropped out, and then how many students of the total were from the ag education program? Now, Amanda is, we had some glitches here, and the data, we don't have the hard data up here to show you. So I'm going to apologize for that. And I know Amanda feels badly as well. But what I am going to tell you is the results that I got. And I took 10 of the results that came in, representative schools, and there's about 160 schools in Pennsylvania that have ag. I took 10 across the state. I put career and tech ed. I wanted to make sure I wasn't concentrated in one area or the other. And I was shocked. The first 8 schools to respond, there were 0 dropouts in ag education. the first 8 right off the bat. And then I had 1, and then I had 3, and the 3 was from a very large school in York, and then I had 2. Now, of the 2, that was the only school. Of 3 dropouts in that school, 2 were ag students, and that was my outlier. But it was easy to see that this trend had been building. And as I looked at that, I thought, you know, we had this nice group from across the state, but what we're missing, let's go to the Saul High School in Philadelphia. And for those of you that are not familiar with Saul, it is a magnet school. The students try to come to Saul. They have to apply. It's a rigorous process. They come in the summer as 9th graders to be in service, and then they stay. We snatched one of their administrators to work for the Secretary of Agriculture, Jean Loney. Some of you may know Jean. And so when I was walking down the hall, I said, Jean, how many students were at Saul High School last year? She said, 570. And of that 570, how many dropped out? Now, it's hard to tell, she said, how many of those actually go back to the high school, because a few could, but even if she overestimated, it would only be 7 out of the 570. So she's estimating that 1% or less dropped out. And those are some pretty remarkable statistics. And I think as we can use those type of statistics to drive decision making among administrators, policymakers, people that make those funding decisions, it can really drive ag education, career and tech education to the forefront. Because I sit in a different seat now. For 22 years, I was a high school ag teacher. And to tell you the truth, I'm a little envious this week. Because you know what? My badge says judge. It doesn't say advisor anymore. And I'm a little bit jealous. But now that I'm sitting in state government as a political appointee, and you know, Chris is a little more fortunate because he's good to go. But when you're at will, you know, someday Dr. Justison will be at won't. You know, that's what happens. Yeah. So I hope I can come work for you, you know, when my hitch is done. Thank you very much. But being at will and ultimately at won't, you get to see things through a different veil. And one of the things that happened in Pennsylvania, and Amanda, I'm going to have you hit that next response. These are the goals that she has set up for you as she's helped us frame up this workshop. So you want to tell everybody what your goals are for today?
Can you hear me if I speak up? Sure.
And those of you who don't know that Amanda is one of our USDE interns, the USDE intern for ag education. She's a fellow. Very good. Had long history with FFA. We're very, very proud of Amanda.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. Well, working with Misi and Troy on this, we decided we wanted to come up with some goals we wanted to challenge you with, and also to make you really think about as you sit through the rest of this presentation and as you go back to your communities and to your homes and as you continue to teach. The first goal is, how are you going to use the data that you already collect? You have teams that compete in career development events. You have teams that go out and help volunteer. And granted, these are not number data like you're used to seeing, but these are data that you can bring back. And how can that help drive the success of your program that you already have? And how can you make those useful without using other resources, using those resources that you already have? So without taking extra time out of your schedule or finding folks that you need your help with, you can use what you're already using. And then our goal is to have you plan one specific plan to engage when you return to your school. So after hearing this presentation and hearing some of the ideas that Misi and Troy and I have come up with, and what we have kind of talked about over, I guess, the last couple months, one idea that you can actually bring back and use, and hopefully in a few months, and maybe not even that long, see some success in your programs.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to tell you first of all about a data-driven disaster, and Chris is very familiar with this in Pennsylvania. I was sitting in my office one day when our policy director came over, and he said, look at this. And someone in downtown Harrisburg had said, someone in state government, that ag education in Pennsylvania is a national embarrassment, and we need to do something about it. someone who is in a very powerful position. And I said, no, wait a minute. There's got to be more to this story. And what had happened is they were looking at test results. My theory is they were looking only at students that were counted by the department as ag education students. And those students had to be sitting behind in seats 3 periods a day out of 7 in a comprehensive high school. As a comprehensive high school teacher, I knew that the only students that could take an agriculture course at 3 periods out of the 7 in a day were special needs students that were on individual education plans. So I also looked at the number and thought, these numbers don't add up. We have 8,000 students approximately in ag education in Pennsylvania, more probably 8,000 FFA members. So the number that they had was very, very small. But before we could really get the hitch on the wagon pulled up, folks in state government, it's fair to say, were off to the races looking at how to correct this problem. And we had to do a lot of work to take people out to look at programs and to really prove that that statement that ag education in Pennsylvania is not a national embarrassment. So after dragging lots of Chris's bosses out and about, and my bosses, above bosses too, to show them what an SAE program is like, what a good FFA program is like, and how that is all integrated into ag education, we have all come to a level of understanding. And I think it's fair to say that now people that didn't have any association with ag education in Pennsylvania, you have to remember that our governor loves Saul High School because he was the mayor of Philadelphia. But some people that also came out of those urban areas that weren't as familiar did not understand how ag education functions in the field. It's fair to say now that they do and have a deepened appreciation. We have went through a whole policy fuss for probably a year and a half, but I'm really pleased to say that we have reached some agreements. And it basically, I think, has saved a lot of programs because there was concerns about cutting hours, cutting programs. Superintendents, administrators are putting programs on the chopping block because the money wasn't going to be flowing in. And you know, if you're in a rural school, and I was in a very rural school, we graduated 40, 50 kids a year, you know, a few $1,000s can make or break the difference in a program. So I thought back to my data-driven success. And my data-driven success was the program that I worked at was Greenwood High School, and it's Perry and 2 counties make up this little rural school. It's about 45 minutes outside of Harrisburg. I came in 1987 after being around about a couple other sabbaticals, and when I got there, there were 16 students. They were all young men, and my task was to try to build this program. Now, secretly, I think the superintendent wanted to deep six the program because he wanted somebody that understood computers, and that wasn't me. And Chris can tell you very well he needed a mechanic, and that sure wasn't me. And the superintendent was feuding with the school board. He called me on the phone. We had an interview. I never got into school. I went there. He picked me up in the car, drove me around, called me the next day, offered me the job, and I said, I'll take it. And from the rest is history. He was no longer employed the month after, but I was still there. And so I knew that there was a task at hand. And with that, we have grown from the time I was there, and not due to my success, but what the students did and the community support. The program has grown to well over 100. And again, small school with tremendous community support. And these are some of the ways that I think that really helped at Greenwood. We have a neighboring teacher, Merle Brophy, who also sat on my school board. And so he was an ag teacher on the school board, and he always said, Nisi, where are your 5 votes? We have 9 members of our school board, so you can make or break your ag program in those 5 votes. To me, that said, at every single school board meeting, I needed to have a report of some type. But they didn't need to see me. At every single school board meeting, I sent a student in official dress with a report. And we had the report typed up ahead of time, so they went with their parents and delivered all types of information. It was short, it was succinct. I used the officer team. I accompanied most times, but often their parents would take them as well. So they got to see a variety of students. not just the president, not just the valedictorian, but also the special needs student. And I had a I'll take all comers rule and welcome them. So what are the types of things that we talked about? One of the first things we talked about was who got into college, because I wanted to champion this program as a program that make or break, when those kids walked across at graduation, that they had a plan. I would fail. I would see myself as a failure if, as they walked across at class night and they said what their future plans are, I don't have any. That's what concerned me. I wanted them to have a plan. So as soon as the fall started in September, good, bad, or indifferent, every Friday, my seniors and I worked on college applications. Many times that meant going home, SAE visit with mom and dad, because most of my students were first-time college attenders. So you have to walk them through the process. You have to walk through student aid. And I know maybe the guidance counselors are supposed to do that, but guidance counselors have other things to do. And plus, it got me into the homes and I got to meet the students. So first thing I put on that, who got into college, and that was always a big deal. Second thing I put in there were scholarships. When we did college applications, we did scholarships. Loads and loads of scholarships. So this person got this scholarship. And then folks started to make the connection that if you're an ag, you also can go to college, which was not the case that people thought about in 1997. I put grants. I started writing grants. And I'm not a gifted writer. But there's money out there to be had. And by the time I left, we had taken in over $100,000. And that might not seem like a lot if you're a big ticket school, but that's 2 years' salary for a teacher. So actually we built to the second teacher. When I left, we had two ag teachers, and we annexed the shop teacher, and we count him too. So we say we have a 3-teacher department. And I still talk in terms of we. Other things that we put there, besides that, of course, were CDE results. How did the students do? And then I started keeping record of where those students went, their final plans, and then I did a 5-year out plan. Where are they 5 years from now? You might think this is a lot of work, but in your FFA chapters, I had different offices. I had the traditional offices, but I had like the recording secretary, the corresponding secretary. I had a historian. I had a scrapbook historian. I had a PowerPoint show historian. I had a historian that kept records. So I made up lots of offices so students all had opportunities, and one of the best things we did was an annual report that we published, had it really nice, shiny little document. The students did it, and again, that annual report went to the school board. It went to the FFA banquet. It went as many places as possible. And here's another little trick. With permission from the student and the parents, I took a schedule. If I had a valedictorian, I'm trying to think of one that I could use here. Hope Roush was my most recent valedictorian, went to med school. I got her schedule from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, with permission of her parents, and I published that thing in the annual report. Because then when you're trying to recruit an 8th grader, mom and dad can see, look, I can take ag, I can take the college courses, and I can be valedictorian and go on. I also published a schedule for a student that wanted to be in career and tech ed. I published schedules for special needs students because I wanted people to see that you can be an ag and do other things in school. I live in a little town. We have a weekly paper, tiny little paper. Every week we had something in there with a picture. Electronically submitted, towards the end. But boy, if you can provide a little newspaper with a picture, because if you're a one-horse show and one reporter can't be everywhere, they really like to get those pictures, because people like to see pictures. They like pictures and a caption. Again, that might not seem like data, but when it came down to where's your 5 votes, there you go. And I can venture to say all of you can do the same thing with what you already have. So, with that, let's look at administrators, because now you got your school board in your pocket. Now they have to get the boss in your pocket. So David Miller of Maryland says this, never underestimate the power of a cup of coffee. The power of taking someone to dinner, the power of bringing in a lunch. But I think you have to befriend your administrator first. Get in there in the morning. I know now, if I'm not there with my cup of coffee pretty darn early because my current boss is a former dairy farmer, I'm going to miss out for the day. And it was easier for me to get in early than it was at the end of the day. So if you have that opportunity to pop your head in the morning with a cup of coffee, hey boss, how you doing? Establish that relationship. How can I help? Anything we can do for you. And I know that you're not there to landscape the school, you're not there to build signs, you're not there to do those things. But you know what? It never hurts to offer once in a while, again, to build that relationship. And another thing I like to do was have my boss come down and watch. If something neat was happening that day, hey, come on down. We're going to be dissecting a room, and wouldn't this be fun? Hey, come on down. We're having a plant sale. Hey, come on down, whatever. And so, pick the phone up. Stop through. Hey, I loved it when my principal came in my classroom. I never was concerned. So welcome those administrators there. What are they concerned with? Assessment scores. So anything that you can do to bolster your reading and math would be helpful. Because in Pennsylvania, again, those darn assessment scores got us in trouble a year and a half ago. But I think those assessment scores can get us out of trouble. The success story I have is Robert Clark, who now works for the National Council. And Robert Clark was an administrator of a vocational technical school, director. They had 10 sending schools. His state assessment scores went up, and largely with a population of special needs students. But he did that by integrating English and math right into the curriculum in the, quote, shops. So in horticulture, it was reading, it was math. So administrators care about adequate yearly progress, annual yearly progress. They also care about retention, dropout rates. Now, I know I have a group of ag teachers here, so have any dropouts last year? No? No?
One non-grad who could not pass the exit exam.
Okay, one non-grad, but just because not because he didn't stay in school. Anybody? No? There you go. So among all the ag teachers present here, your university, no dropouts. That's important. That is important. That is important. And you know what? Your principal probably doesn't really know that because they're not sorting it out. So it doesn't happen to say, hey, I'm really proud this year. We've had another year where none of our students have dropped out. Just drop that. That is not all, scientifically sound, and we're not putting it in and doing linear regressions and pulling out samples. But that's data, and you have it, and you can drop that. You know who the policymakers are. You know who the decision makers are. Hey, tell the curriculum director. Show them how you're linking to those state academic standards. Second thing, again, with principals, with your guidance counselors especially, acceptance into post-secondary institutions, let them know what's out there. And we can fight with guidance counselors till the cows come home, literally. But you know what? Buy that guidance counselor a cup of coffee, too, and make friends with them. And my guidance counselor and I finally, we got to the point where he'd say, look, I'm coming down to schedule the 9th graders in your class. Let's just do their schedules in your class, then we'll take care of it. Because that was a lot easier for him. So I opened up those doors. I took him to Penn State, showed him the opportunities, got him involved in judging some of the CDE contests, and I did everything I could to get him on board. And we can be mad at him, or we can say, hey, come on down here. Let's show you what's happening. I think other things are we don't share our success stories. And I think success stories are part of data. And you all have a success story to share. I have little Kevin Brightville, who's now my vet. Little Kevin Brightville, when he went to Penn State, he was so homesick that his parents took him Monday morning. They went to visit him on Wednesday, and they came and took him home on Friday. He cried and cried and cried and cried. It was almost embarrassing. Kevin did not get above a B for me. I don't know how he did what he did, but he turned it around. Now he's a vet, and he's working on my cows. Kevin Bright, and in the meantime, his mother was tragically killed. Difficult family situation. That kid is a success story, and you all have them. And let people know. Use those success stories to drive those funds back to you. Because I'm tired of all the bad news. And I'm tired of people saying that education's not working. And I'm tired of being public enemy number one because I was a teacher. Because you know what? We have good news and we have good kids. And I don't like to hear the term bad kids, because all kids are good, and you're doing what you need to do with those students to make them successful. Look at this. How can you not walk down the street and go, there are great things happening in this country, and I'm tired of hearing about the bad things. So sell those kids. And you know what? Some people think that that is exploiting your students. Well, I don't care, because they need positive attention, and I'm the first one to exploit. And I'm just sorry I'm not back there exploiting them even more, because kids need to have positive attention. Your program needs to have positive attention. Schools need to have positive attention. And here are some ways, not doing anything else, not making it harder on you, to just be able to sell what you have. And you know, back to that Marketing Class 101, these are the features of my program, and these are the benefits. The features are any student can take a class, and the benefits are they can still go to college. Think about features and benefits. Okay, and I'm just going to ask you guys real quick. We'll just spin around real fast. And I know it's hard to hear in here, so I'll repeat what you say. But what type of data are you collecting? Real life stuff, things that you have right there at hand, ladies?
Enrollment data, success stories.
Enrollment data, that's good. What percentage of your school's on? Success stories. How do you share your success stories?
Newspaper all the time. Newsletter all the time.
Good. School newspaper, there's a good one. School newspaper. Maybe morning announcements. I don't know if you can slip something on the morning announcements, but I was always handing slips of paper in there. You've been on TV. And tell us what you've done on TV.
Tell them, it's awesome.
Farm City Day, and somehow I end up as the State Farm City Coordinator. So if you have never been to that Farm City website, go there. There's a National Farm City website with loads of stuff. Don't know, no, we have to brag. You do it at school. We have Farm City Day in the Department of Ag, and we had 1,500 students come in, and people are all set up. It's kind of crazy, and so all the political people are like, and I'm thinking, this is the best day of my year. You can add something. There you go, ACTE, success stories to pass on. So if we're going to try to wrangle Senator Casey into doing something, you can tell me what to give him. Okay, I'll ask the senator if we can make that work.
School board meeting on occasion, make the administrative list, paper articles, TV a couple times a year.
Good.
School announcements, emails, history wide. I'm in return on history, so I send out history wide.
Good. Little emails? Good. Yeah, keep those emails, and I'm sure you do, bullet form real tight. Because you know what people want to do now? Read, click, delete. Because you see Troy and I do our BlackBerry prayer, down, read real quick, click. So not Dr. Justison. Anything?
We use similar things in the environment. One other thing we do is collect data on the students' intended career areas and 7 career clusters.
Okay.
We make that to school board administration.
Good. The students select a career cluster, and they sort them out among 7 categories, and then make that available for folks.
Do the English language arts scores, California, math scores, attendance.
California, without a doubt, leads the nation on data collection. They are the model for the country. And, you talk to Jim Ashmond, and he has more data. The one thing that their executive director of Ag Teachers Association told me, which I was shocked at, is they have more people, the bachelor's degrees, going back for a technical education in a 2-year college. I think 3 times as many as they have associate degrees going on to bachelor's degrees. And that shocked me. But data. Anything else? Okay. Who should receive the data? And I think we've covered that. The decision makers, people that hold the purse strings, as policy people. It doesn't hurt for parents to hear this too, because parents can be our best salespeople because they're recruiting. They're telling their neighbors there's more kids coming up. How can this data help our programs? Funding, survival. And we've had even the best programs in Pennsylvania been on the chopping block. and that's been scary. I think Chris will agree. And you know, when you look at a program, and I won't mention any names, but those ones that you think are the best, and they're ready to go, it's darn scary. It is darn scary. Okay, so I know it's Friday afternoon, it's 4, and I know it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and it could be 5 o'clock here. So what we're going to do is ask you to look and say, and some of you already said, use the data that you've already had, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Justison to wrap up for us. But I want you to think and share one thing that you're not doing that you will do with data when you go home. One thing. Just give you 30 seconds here. And we'll get Dr. Justison mapped back up. Okay. Tracking the students better. And I don't have to tell you to watch out for confidentiality, because that's, you know, when you're using students to help you do things, that's an issue. But track them, you know, 5-10 years if you can. And it's great to build an alumni support system as well. You can help pull some dollars back in. It's nice to, you know, I don't know about you, but the day before Thanksgiving was a crazy day for me, because, you know, you're trying to wrap up, but then all the kids come home from college, or they're all coming back to mom and dad's, and they drop by. And they want to talk. So you know what? Day before Thanksgiving, the last couple of years, I didn't plan too much. And anybody that dropped by, their job was to lecture to the class and tell them what they learned. And the most ornery kid I had, Matt Byers, he was so ornery that when we came to National Convention, I said, the only way I'm bringing you is if your dad comes, who's a town cop. And Dad was mad at me. But by the time we got a mile outside of town, he stood up and had Matt sit in the seat and was all after him. Matt turned out to be, you know, we just are very close. He comes back and always talked about how the program positively affected him. So, ladies, one thing you're going to do you didn't do.
The Marcus Silver Prince get your school website going and
Using that website.
PowerPoint, the school board alumni parents.
Develop a PowerPoint and put some good numbers in there.
I think I need to do a better job of tracking students.
Tracking them. More consistent with community updates.
One thing I'd like to throw out for people that would help us is keeping presentations, track them after they're out of high school, after they're out of college.
She needs tracking out of high school, out of college. And you can go to your State Department of Ed website, and we have, Chris will tell you, you can get a lot of data, dropout data, that kind of things off your State Department of Ed website if you want to do like comparisons to schools.
I think that I should prepare a formal report that focuses just on the students that are in the ag program as to the dropout rate, how they score on their graduation qualifying, and put that in a report that I can give to my administrators in school.
That would be nice in like a little promotional pamphlet or something that your students do up, just some little bulleted points there. That'd be great.
What I'm seeing now is getting it to the school board.
Getting it to the school board.
Get around the district office.
Anybody else? Before I turn it over to Troy, I think the main point is when you hear data, you start thinking, oh, this is too complicated. Data's beyond what I'm able to do. Data's difficult. That one email that I sent out this summer shocked me because I kept seeing over and over and over again, no dropouts, no dropouts, no dropouts. And I just wanted to tease Troy a little bit and to meet his challenge of prove to me, because I wanted him now to go to President Bush and say, look, I got this data in hand. These kids drop out less frequently. So you are going to do that, correct? Oh, you probably have already done it, excuse me. Thank you very much. However, it really made me think about what you can do, because it's overwhelming being a teacher. There's so much coming in that it's just almost impossible to keep up. So I would say, use what you have. Just use it's that old don't work harder, work smarter. Take the stuff that you already have and just use it to your advantage to drive success to your program, and that success the policymakers, your school board, your administrators. Don't be afraid to sell, to market. It's great to have hard data to be able to do that. Boss?
Is this on? Oh, it is now.
It is on now.
Listen, what she's telling you about marketing is right. We are moving into a market economy. Everybody talks about how schools should be more business-based and we should be approaching public education more is responsive to the demands of a market economy, well then do it. Market your programs. Do what you, where are you from?
Indiana.
Do what Indiana, where you're a teacher?
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
Okay. Do what this guy just suggested right here. If you're not a data person like me, I'm not a data person, wait till the end of the year and get the performance results of all the students and ask for your students to be pulled out, the ag students to be pulled out. And even if your school doesn't make AYP, compare your students with the other students in your district and in your school building. And if they're doing better, tell everyone about it and use those results. That's data you don't have to worry about collecting. There's someone else who's a statistical data collection guru for the district. And use their results that you'll get in the summertime and tell everyone at the beginning of the school year and your students and their parents that your kids do as well as or better than everybody else in the school building. And, you know, Misi's right. We're tired of always being told that we're never doing as well as we should be and all of those things. Well, we must be doing something well because we're still #1 in the world.
Absolutely.
And we need to be telling people that what we do in your programs is working. The problem is we haven't done enough of that, and the ship has sailed right over the top of us, and it happened so quickly and quietly. We didn't know we had to be marketers about our program, but fine, we'll meet that challenge. And that challenge is just what Misi has proposed to you. She's shown this in Pennsylvania. We think we've got the results in California, and we need some results in a handful of other states around the country. And then I can go to the president and say on November 8th, hint, hint, that it's working in several states, that our students do as well as or better than any other group of students in any other system. And you know what? That's all we can ask for right now. And that's enough. And I think you're right. And I'm shocked with your initial results too. I'm glad to find out they're not dropping out at all, but I was shocked to find out that not even one had dropped out. And I think that says a lot about who we are.
And I'm going to do a little commercial to wrap up. I gave you my card there, and it is, I want you to draw attention to that website at the bottom, Marketplace for the Mind. But that's a website that I didn't make it look pretty because I'm not a technical person, but there's some good content on there, a lot of grants, not just for Pennsylvania, but across the country. We have 75 grant opportunities. We have probably 100 scholarships. It doesn't, for obscure things, again, you can find it on there. And there's also a good curriculum search engine aligned to Pennsylvania standards. But if you want to look for something in the animal science, you just click on animal science and you can find it. And I will wrap up by saying this. You know, in Harrisburg, I'm around different people than I am at Greenwood. And I hear constantly about, last January, you probably saw Newsweek, the boy crisis. And boys are failing, and boys aren't doing well, and boys are this and that. I hear about gaming addictions. My son's addicted to gaming. My daughter's addicted to gaming. I hear that a lot. I hear there is a lack of motivation. And I'm saying, you know what? And I still say, I did not see that at Greenwood High School. I did not see that as an ag teacher. That is not my boys you're talking about. Because my boys are engaged, they're doing things, and they're succeeding. And you look around here, and you're going to see the same darn thing. Boys are not failing in agricultural education programs. I don't think there is a boy crisis. And I'm going to argue with anyone that tells me there is. Look at these young men here, and you can see that again. And that's soft skills. And as someone that has sat in a lot of interviews, and I never interviewed anybody for a job before, but now I've had that opportunity, different veil, the skills that your students are getting, the soft skills, the ability to speak, to understand how to sit in an interview, all of that adds up to so much. And I can tell you that my boss, first thing he looks at on an application, if he sees FFA, the person is at least going to get that second interview. That is a screening tool for him because he knows the caliber of student you get. So pat yourself on the back. You're doing a great job. Now just let everybody else know you're doing it and do it with some hard numbers on occasion. But thank you very much. Thank you for presenting with me today, Dr. Justison. Thank you, Amanda, for getting the PowerPoint together. And thank you for coming.